fresh from a triple defeat in Parliament, British Prime Minister Theresa May faced a particularly rough grilling this afternoon. In an unprecedented move, the government was held in contempt of Parliament yesterday and forced to publish its legal advice on its Brexit deal minutes before today's session began. Now, that advice, considered an indictment by some for revealing that the so-called backstop arrangement to avoid a hard border could trap the UK in negotiations with the EU for years to come. Let's take a look.
What we have is a government in crisis. A government that has lost 2 Brexit secretaries, a Home Secretary, a Foreign Secretary, a Work and Pension Secretary. A government that has suffered from 3 consecutive defeats in just 2 hours. The first government to do so, Mr. Speaker, in 40 years. And now a government found to be in contempt of Parliament. Is it time that the Prime Minister took responsibility? A responsibility for concealing the facts on her Brexit deal from members in this House and the public. Will she take responsibility?
And joining me live with the latest twists and turns is our London correspondent, Vincent McAviney. Vincent, what was revealed in that legal advice that was published eventually?
Good afternoon, Tessa. Well, as you heard there, the government having to publish that legal advice this morning at 11:30 after becoming the first government ever to be found in contempt of Parliament. And really, there isn't much beyond what we heard from the Attorney General Geoffrey Cox on Monday. It says that there is a risk of a stalemate when it comes to the backstop, and it could lead to protracted rounds of negotiations because the UK could get caught indefinitely if they cannot agree with the EU to end that backstop. So in effect, it is what we already knew. It's just being confirmed. There was a lot of suspicion around that wording. But as we heard from Ian Blackford of the SNP there, who asked questions about this, the government was being incredibly defensive. There were accusations that they had been misleading the Commons. And here's what Theresa May had to say in response.
The advice that he is holding in his left hand has no difference from the statement that was given. Indeed, I might take up the personal challenge from the Right Honourable Gentleman. I have myself said on the floor of this House that there is indeed no unilateral right to pull out of the backstop. What I have also said is it is not the intention of either party that the backstop should A, be used in the first place, or should B, if it is used, should be anything other than temporary.
Now, the DUP, the Northern Irish Party, who are in a supply and confidence deal with Theresa May to give her majority, well, they voted against the government yesterday. And after that publication, Nigel Dodds, an MP here who leads them in Westminster, said it is devastating what is in this legal document. Now, we already thought that there were real cracks in the relationship between the two parties, but it seems clear now, after events in the past 24 hours, that Theresa May cannot count on the support of the DUP next Tuesday in that meaningful vote in Parliament. She's trying to bring little groups of MPs, 5 at a time we understand, into Downing Street to try to convince them. But as these debates carry on, the second one just starting now on security issues, there's another 3 days of debates to go. It seems that Theresa May is not gaining any MPs to try to help her next week. And of course, MPs now have this new power that they voted for last night, which means that if the vote fails, when a vote is brought back, they won't just get to vote down Theresa May's deal. They'll also get to determine the course, where Britain goes. And a lot of people here think that that now means that the prospect of no deal is off the table. But everyone wondering just how much longer Theresa May can hang on for. She didn't get as big a grilling as at PMQs as we thought. Jeremy Corbyn unexpectedly decided to talk about a domestic policy issue, a universal credit, but she is looking still like she's going to lose that vote next Tuesday.
All right, thank you for that, correspondent Vincent McAviney talking to us from London there. All right, so is this, I mean, Nick, you were talking about history in the making. I'd like to put it out to Maria. Is this a turning point, do you think?
It could be. I think it's important that now everyone takes responsibility in a cool, calm and collected way, look at the long-term interests. And that does not require more political drama. I think we need less political drama. And I truly hope that the Commons comes together on the 11th and backs the deal. I don't see a room in the European Union which is absolutely united, the 3 institutions behind this deal. Not that we like it, but we see at the possible, in the circumstances, the best possible in the circumstances with the red lines from London and the integrity of the internal market and the autonomy of EU decision-making to preserve. So I truly hope that that withdrawal agreement will be backed.
But for Theresa
on the
May,
11th.
yeah, for Theresa May, she has been a survivor. Has this taken a terrible turn for her, finally?
Yeah, I mean, is this one too far? I mean, there are people talking here saying, they don't know whether she's going to be at next week's summit, what's going to happen. It's obviously very, very bad. The only silver lining, as was mentioned, is the fact that it does potentially take no deal off the table. The EU have been saying all along, kind of really helping Theresa out with her own line by saying it's her deal or nothing at all. It now looks instead like it's going to be her deal or no Brexit, or possibly kind of a Norway-style, Norway plus customs union, but Brexiteers hate that as well. So all those Brexit-supporting MPs, do they actually go, Theresa May's deal is now the hardest Brexit we can realistically get? So we don't like it, but we're going to have to throw ourselves behind it.
It seems that the word indefinitely in that legal advice did unite a lot of her opponents against her.
Yeah,
as well.
I think there was a feeling actually after last night, despite how difficult yesterday had been in Parliament, the first time the British government had been defeated 3 times in one day, I think since 1978, there was still a feeling that actually had not been a bad day for Theresa May, because it was a reminder to Brexiteers that the likelihood of no Brexit happening, that the UK would essentially stay in the EU, seemed to be strengthening, and that may well play into her hands. That they might bite their tongue and go with her deal because it would be better than remaining inside. But I think what today has done, what this legal advice has done, is lay down in black and white what everyone dislikes about the Brexit deal, who dislikes.
But it's not like they didn't know.
It's not they didn't know, but it is there now in black and white, like legal terms that, despite the optimism of the language that no one wants the backstop to be indefinite, that it could well be, despite the language that, it will not lead to a hard border down the Irish Sea, it could well do, and that Britain may find itself in intractable negotiations for years to come when it comes to future trade. So for Brexiteers, it's a reminder of everything they hated. And I would just take up this point about no deal somehow being off the table. I don't buy that, because it is in legislation in Westminster that Britain is going to leave on the 29th of March. Parliament will have to vote to overturn that. And the problem is that while they may not like Theresa May's deal, can they unite behind anything else? And if they can't, Britain crashes out.
Yeah, we'll talk about the scenarios in a bit, but I want to ask, if this doesn't go through because of the numbers, it looks like it's not going to get through. Then she comes back to the EU. Then she comes back to face the rest of the 27. Then what? What happens then?
I agree with you that what happened yesterday was fairly historical, of course, in this additional drama, adds to the uncertainties in all directions. And it shows once again how Brexit is just a lose-lose for all. There is no win for anyone. And I don't see that there is anything else than a hard Brexit, whatever happens. So if Theresa May would fall out of this, I don't see, and it's not for me to say, of course, I don't see how that would solve the problem. You still need a majority in Commons for or against the deal.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And as Darren was mentioning, the no deal is probably not off the table. Here, there are 7 scenarios. Which scenario do you think, Nick, could be the most likely?
Oh, God, that's a question and a half. We're going softer, is what it looks like. That looks like the direction of travel now towards a kind of a Norway style, because it's off the shelf. It's something that you can come back to the EU, and they've said they will accept. They'll put lots of conditions on it. Britain won't like some of those conditions, I suspect. It's a much bigger country than Norway. But it's something you can do in a hurry. This thing is, if it's not going to be Theresa May's deal, it needs bodging together pretty quickly.
Is there enough support for that kind of
Well, I think that's the big question. So you talked about what's going to happen next week. I mean, the EU, talking about to officials here, not very much, even if Theresa May is
not much
voted
that
down.
can be done.
They are not moving on the fundamentals of this deal. I think one of them quipped that they might change some superficial things. They could print it out in red, white and blue paper to make it slightly more appealing to Theresa May. But fundamentally, the detail's not going to change. Parliament is probably more likely to vote for a Norway Plus or an EEA-style deal. Yeah. The problem is, though, we've got so much politics between now and even potentially getting that point where Parliament can vote on it.
So many questions in it. All right.